Well, hello, that's me again. Today is May 16th, 2025. It is Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. And I have a breaking news for the negotiations of the Russian delegation and Ukrainians in Istanbul. I'm screwing with you. There are no breaking news, albeit for American side and Ukrainian side, obviously with Europeans, it sounds extremely ominous and not good to put it politely, but you know what? The world already reacts. There are not everybody is an idiot in the West. I always say that I do not try to, paint it with a broad brush. But we have the latest photographs from Istanbul. As you can see yourself, Russian delegation is trying to explain to Ukrainian delegation and those people who probably passed there for Ukrainian delegation, but probably some kind of the other people from Europe, let's say in the United States, that, yeah, if you want the ceasefire, and yeah, just move your troops the hell out of the territories which are already part of Russian Federation per Russian constitution, which are of course the four. There's not much remaining, still some territories which are not liberated, but they are continued to be liberated by Russian army. And as Medinsky stated, if not, then there will be 5 territories, then 6, and things of this nature. Russians can do it all day long, and for year, 2, 3, 5, and even Charlie Hebdo. No matter how you, whatever the kind of attitude you have towards these guys, but they absolutely correctly stated, just looking at Macron, say that, you are in amazing form, and they say that, yeah, you're gonna win, Zelensky, and Zelensky tells that, yeah, Putin definitely is afraid of me. So, yeah, you basically understand that it's not charade. It really is just basically stating Russian position, and all this PR, all this verbiage, all this political legerdemain, the only thing which Western political elites can do, it came to naught. And Russians are sitting there, sure, yeah, let's communicate next day, and they will continue to do that. Obviously, Ukraine demands, that Putin be there for what? To talk with who? Trump wanted to meet Putin as Mr. Sebastian Gorka, the guy who has no clue about anything ranging from the real applied geopolitics to military. He said that the meeting was imminent between Trump and Putin. He's a neocon. He hates Russian gods. He's not very bright. As most of them are, those American generals like Kellogg, things of this nature. So they really believe that they're that great. They're not. They suck. They suck as military professionals, they suck as political professionals, and they are all corrupt. If not corrupted by the money, then corrupted by their lust for power and, the self-importance. That's the only thing which so far we saw from the Western militaries, from NATO primarily. They think that they are very important and very bright and very brilliant military commanders. They are not. And so after this thing, we can take a look at what you saw in the beginning. There's all kinds of the pacification goes on in on the special military operation, and let's start looking at some data from a special military operation. We start with, of course, with the losses. As you can see yourself, losses are growing. Russians are done with the ceasefire for the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the World War II, which, of course, we know it was the United States which won all. Russians were just sideshow, just, some small little action. So, and yeah, it's all coming back up. And as you can see yourself, there are Ukraine continues to launch all those UAVs, all of them practically, maybe 1, 2, and primarily fragments which are shot down, fall sometimes on some civilian targets. But yeah, that's what they do. This is the only thing they can do. And as you can see yourself, within the last 24 hours, tanks and APCs, 15 of them, and on and on and on. And it has to be understood when you look at some maps, there are many people with degrees in, sociology and other types of their education, who for some reason decided that they're military professionals, and they draw those maps, and they draw those arrows and those sparks about their arrows, and Ukraine continues to try to penetrate Russian territory. Let me explain for those people who still don't get it. Attack, by the way, is a maneuver, merely maneuver. Offensive is a little bit different because it's attack plus achieving their some objective. But that's the whole other story. So those attacks are done usually at maximum in the company size force. Simple as that. In reality, it's usually DRG, which is Diversionary Recon Group, which could be anywhere from 10 to probably platoon size group. And if you think so that this is offensive, this is some kind of the, major battle, well, I have a bridge to sell you. Yes, they try to penetrate, they try to do those things because the only thing NATO generals can do is PR action and draw those, arrows and show this. Oh, you see, we're moving there. Sure, they usually get into the what is called the security zone, or as for a field, as Russians called it, and get annihilated that. But yeah, they will continue to do that, and so we can go and take a look now at our friends Marat Khairulin, basically dealing with this issue. Here's Torskaya. As you can see yourself, and you can immediately see that Russians doing the split thing. They split Ukrainian defense. They attack on several sectors. You can see yourself, those arrows are fairly large, and when you take a look at how they do it, they leave nothing to basically command of whatever is remaining of this NATO force, which is, of course, the Ukrainian armed force. In reality, it's NATO force, as to move whatever they have left in terms of reserves along the front line, which that's how the split happens, and that's how they lose the cohesion of the front. And as you can see yourself, Russians continue to pummel them into utter submission. And so this is Torskaya. Now we can take a look at the Pokrovsk operational axis, and as you can see yourself, generally the whole front now is in motion. You see, this is like everywhere. You go to, Zaporozhye to the south. You have the attacks and movement towards, and those are long arrows everywhere. And Pokrovsk itself, Russians are not going to be entering Pokrovsk. Well, the DRGs, the diversionary recon groups are already there, but they will continue to surround it until they invest it completely, and it's just, they will have to, they will have to just leave. And this is what is happening on the number of the operational axis now. And as you can see yourself, this is also the the part of the front. Everywhere you can see attacks by Russians, and they, you saw yourself the numbers which Russians do. And just returning back to people who still continue to let's put it this way. They think that they know something about the warfare. Here is the basically artilleryman of the Russian Marines. They use artillery, as you can see yourself, and the artillery remains the main weapon, essentially, of delivering the fire impact, one of the major weapons. In terms, as I already stated many times, in terms of the operational rear, Russians killed there so many people of the armed forces of Ukraine and those advisors that they don't count it. Russian defense ministry simply doesn't put them into their daily tally, because you cannot identify how many people you killed, for example, in some kind of the assembly area, which brings us to very interesting situation in terms of what Ukrainians love to talk about, and basically the Western propaganda loves them. So what you can see yourself, he is still here a lieutenant general. Now he is Colonel General Andrei Mordvichev. Yeah, the guy who liberated Avdiivka, and he did a lot of damage to NATO. And Mr. Salikov, the former commander of the ground forces of Russia, have been actually not removed. He was actually promoted to the post, kind of more political post of the military advisor for the post of the deputy of chair of the Russia Security Council due to his also old age, so he had to retire. And so Mr. Mordvichev, he is now the commander of the ground forces of Russian Federation. This doesn't bode well for NATO. These are really bad news of when this guy takes the, well, he already took the command. And I love internet. People remember those things. Remember? Yeah, apart from shooting down, every day hundreds of kinzhals and killing, 100 million Russians a day, here is the guy, which is, or lady, Anatomy of Truth, who says, well, isn't this awkward? Word of advice anytime you read according to Ukrainian armed forces. Well, anytime you read according to the Pentagon or US sources, it's all propaganda, and that tells you actually about the professional level of people who spread this, spew this BS, that they do not even understand that they have been manipulated, and some of them played the game themselves. That, remember, March 19, 2022, according to Ukrainian armed forces, Russian Lieutenant General Andrei Mordvichev, who commanded the 80th Guards Combined Arms Army, was killed in action in southern Ukraine. You see, so evidently Russians are very advanced in terms of the reviving killed people, and so Andrei Mordvichev, after he was revived, brought from the dead, and he is fine and healthy, and he commands now Russia's ground forces. Yeah, they have to be really, really worried in terms of the consequences, especially in the European headquarters. NATO headquarters, those armies, those mighty, United Kingdom, whatever, the half of the brigade they have, and obviously mighty French armed forces and things of this nature. So, and I will talk about this a little bit more, but I want to also kind of get you a little bit into the issue of weapons, if you wish. And we already know that yet another F-16 went down. Russians are extremely, extremely disappointed, because evidently, that's the quality of both planes and the people who fly them. Ukraine has lost another F-16 after an emergency forced the pilot to eject during a mission to repel a Russian attack, said the Ukrainian Air Force in a post on Telegram. It is Ukraine's third known F-16 loss during the war with Russia. Russians shut down actually one of them, but yeah, they're losing it without letting Russians to kill them, and they lose them due to extremely poor maintenance and extremely poor training of the pilots. So I don't even know how to really explain those things, but as I already stated, the professional level of the Ukrainian military is dismal, because most professional and capable people have been killed. So simple as that. And as the result, we see this F-16 fall. They're falling from the skies, just every week they lose F-16s. And actually it's not the third, I believe it's more than that, because Russians blew up number of those F-16s on the ground. So it is what it is. And now there is another development which is happening, and that will bring us to the issue of the war in Ukraine in depth. But look at this. Here's the latest Russian missile called Banderol. Banderol means a small parcel. The one which is not very large. You don't need big, large box to send something. And this is essentially the parcel. And as you can see yourself, this is it's stealthy. You saw yourself it when Mr. Medvedev was visiting one of the military districts recently. And so, as you can see yourself, Banderol, it is under the fuselage of the Russian Orion UAV. It's a long-range system, and it can strike all kinds of targets. It has about 60 kilogram of the explosive warhead, and it's essentially the cruise missile. And remarkably, this small cruise missile has the range of 500 plus kilometers. Russians evidently know something about fuels and jet engines, which the West doesn't know. And this thing flies, and yeah, it was already used in combat, extremely effective. And that, how to say, changes a lot of things already on change the face of the warfare, and this is just one of the smaller, so to speak, issues of the weaponry and ammo which Russians provide every single month to the front lines, and that's why we had the issue with if you saw our conversation with my conversation with Garland Nixon. And Garland brought up extremely important issue. Well, that's what when you have a professional journalist and a professional, well, man with a great deal of the experience around the world. When he talks about, he says, you know what, I mean, Oreshnik and all that, it's over. It doesn't matter that how many bases you have. Essentially, what you do when you do surround Russia with bases, it's a World War II mentality. They don't understand. They are not survivable, and the personnel which is there and equipment in case of the Great War, and I will explain. God forbid, of course, for us to go into that kind of the warfare. They are goners. Let me give you some basically geographic or geometric explanation of the things. And again, I strongly suggest you to go back yesterday. Garland and Nixon and I spoke about this in depth, actually. And here it is. If you take a look at the Camp Bondsteel in Kosovo, you see, it's the camp of the, well, war criminals, essentially, who, gang raped Serbia. And as a result, yeah, they created this Camp Bondsteel. It had nothing to do with steel. Bondsteel is the name of one of the officers of the U.S. Army, or even not in officers, NCO, something like that. Doesn't matter. As you can see yourself, to the right lower corner, approximately we have about mile by mile. It's a large place, but still, you have to understand. It used to have house 5,000 American troops. Now it houses about 1,900 plus, and there are a bunch of the international troops there. And obviously, they have nothing to do with the maintaining peace. They are basically controlling the Albanian organized crime, drug trafficking, and things like that. And they are there as the whip if Serbs decide to do something about basically what they're being done to by Albanian population there. So, and it's not a good situation there. But yes, if you take a look at it and at this Bondsteel camp, I would say that it's comparable, not only comparable, it's probably even smaller than in terms of size as the complex of the Yuzhmash, of which we, of course, are still waiting those photographs after the Mr. Oreshnik visited Yuzhmash in last year in November, and it's it's not there. And well, when you have the Oreshnik single missile with Oreshnik, which means it's a 36 submunitions flying at Mach 10 plus and with the temperature of around 5,000 degrees Celsius of their warheads, and then add there possibly the some explosives, like they were inert used at the Yuzhmash plant. Yeah, you're pretty much gone. It's just gone in the case of real war, even without any nuclear weapons. Same goes if we go to from Bondsteel to Ramstein. As you can see yourself, this is your air base, not only air base, it's a military base in Ramstein. Yeah, it's about, so let's say mile and a half by mile and a half. Again, well, 2 Oreshniks and it's gone. Everything what is there will be gone. Personnel, thousands upon thousands of personnel. So this is how the warfare changed. And I'm talking about just Oreshnik. Of course, Russia uses a variety. The arsenal is immense, including the arsenal of the hypersonic weapons, and nothing they can do about it. And that's the issue. NATO, United States included, simply doesn't have proper air defense, let alone anti-missile defense. It's not there. They cannot intercept anything, really. Well, they can shoot down aircraft, and some of them, they were successful in the first days of the special military operation. And as a result, what are you going to do? So, how you even plan your operations? You can't. And this is what I've been on record for non-stop. And by the way, when we talk about the bond steal, and our good friend Larry Johnson, I mean, he made an excellent video yesterday. It's exposed classified NATO ops in Ukraine that triggered Russia. And he explains the genesis of the conflict, which of course goes back to 1997, essentially. But in reality, even further than that, immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And when Larry speaks about it, he speaks about things which we already know, but each day the newer and newer the evidence pops up in terms of explanation of how the whole thing exploded and how the West was provoking Russia. And just to give you an example, here's the bond steal camp. As you can see yourself, it is 2010. And that's these are barracks of the bond steal camp. And as you can see yourself, the so-called special forces of Ukraine are demonstrating there something and being trained there. Well, guess what? They have been trained there by the US Army. Evidently, the training sucked because there's nobody in the US Army who understands modern warfare. But there you go. This is what you have. This is the photographic evidence, and it was proud, loud and proud. Here we are. We're propping up this, cannon fodder, Ukrainian cannon fodder, but they thought that this Ukrainian cannon fodder can defeat Russia, because obviously, as has been stated many times, those people from CIA and MI6 now will kick out this Mr. Moore for 5 years. He was there BSing, and screwing around, and they think that for some reason they are really good at something. Well, they're not. They're good at, starting fires and doing terrorism, but in terms of the real ability to assess things after you get acquainted with all those wanted and self-promoting, frankly, exaggerated organizations like RUSI or MI6 and Chatham House and all that. They're a bunch of nincompoops. They don't even know what they're dealing with. But now they will have women running that thing. It's DEI higher, obviously, and British didn't learn a thing. So, well, you wouldn't be able to when you are becoming the third world country. So, but this is what is happening, and anybody who tells now that, oh yeah, it was, those aggressive Russians, well, guess what? NATO was training, as have been stated, and Larry makes an excellent case, pardon me, it was training Ukrainians since the get-go, basically. They were, just stating that issue of Ukrainian nationalism. In other matter, they didn't understand that it will be bad. It will be bad in terms of boomerang, and now we have the boomerang. And returning to this issue of the European Union and this thing with everybody knows now, it's about mighty Estonian Navy trying to stop, not Russian, formally it's not Russian, it's international flag. I don't remember what kind of flag was that, but you could see the video of that. And obviously then the Estonians came out and they started lying, that, Russian airplane, which scared the living daylights out of them, was in the somehow NATO airspace. It wasn't. But if you take a look at the territorial waters of Baltic Sea, you can see yourself. The blue are the territorial sea, which is classic 12 mile from the baseline. And obviously red is the exclusive economic zone. As you can see yourself, Russians have the exclusive economic zone coinciding around the Vyborg and St. Petersburg with the exclusive economic zone. But anything between those blue lines is international actually airspace, and that's where Russians have been. But, Estonia, being a mighty army and mighty navy, they decided that they want to, test Russians' patience. Of course, the crew of the tanker was Russian, and they told the Estonian Navy to go to, pound sand. So, Su-35 flew in, but as you can see yourself in the beginning, you don't need now even to have the Su-35 there and spend waste, essentially. Anti-shipping missile, it could be done by Orion or Banderol and even, well, lesser type of the UAVs which carry the ATGMs, such as the Kornet or Vihar. And yeah, that will be it for the Estonian Navy, which doesn't understand that they are basically cannon fodder, their tripwire thing, and the only thing they have for the export is, of course, hatred of Russia. But this currency is kind of like, it's shaky ground for this currency anymore. And as a result, now we have these guys. It's, you know what? Oh gosh, I don't know. So yesterday, and we have the head of the European Union's military committee, Robert Bragger, estimated the number of ships needed for such a mission at 5 to 10. The EU doesn't yet have sufficient resources, ships and aircraft to launch a mission to intercept tankers carrying Russian oil, so such a mission is not currently being discussed, said Robert Bragger, head of the EU military committee, following a meeting of the EU chiefs of general staff. We have not yet received a political task to launch such a mission, he said. But if such task is set, we need to have necessary resources. So for some reason, Mr. Brigger comes out and says that, the number of ships required for essentially intercepting, blockading Russia is 5 to 10, while stressing that everything will depend on the scale of the mission. I don't know where he got those numbers. I really don't. I mean, you cannot understand the thinking of the European military people, especially their general staffs, because evidently we are dealing with people who are utterly incompetent militarily. And I am on record. Current military education in Europe and even in the United States is a joke. They do not prepare proper officers who understand and can grasp the actual operations, because everything they teach there is, as I state non-stop, is confabulated, fairy tales. Written originally, the genesis of this all is in 1945, post-war Europe and United States, where all those, Wehrmacht and SS people just wrote basically the defensive concepts for NATO and wrote a bunch of the, field and operational manuals based on their confabulated numbers, on their BS, which they sold, and they swallowed it hook, line, and sinker about Russians being, not very good militarily. They just accidentally lost, to Red Army. But as we all know, as Mr. Trump already presented his profound, historical sources, it was all United States which defeated all those Axis forces. So, but as a result, we have those people who thinks that, they have the ability to sustain even defend the salvo from a single frigate of the Project 22-350 of Russian Navy, or for that matter from a single Yasin submarine. It's a single launch with the range of up to 1,500 kilometers by any kind of the supersonic like Onyx, P700, P800 Onyx, or 3M22 Zircon, and that will be it for this force, if they want to really try to do stupid thing. And if they think that Estonia or Lithuania, by the way, Russians don't need them, they don't want those people. If they think that they are worth dying for, sure, Russians are ready, as I already stated many times. Russia is ready to fight combined NATO, US Army included. The problem, of course, for especially the United States, it will not be able to supply and sustain operations more than for 2 weeks. That was exposed completely as what can I say, the being paper tiger militarily. You cannot fight 21st century warfare against the 21st century army with, pardon my French, something which is, I'm being obviously facetious here, but what, you want to fight it with the American Civil War force to fight modern war? Well, I have news for you. You're gonna lose it badly. And guess what? As was stated many times, United States probably will go nuclear because it doesn't have any kind of the escalation ladder, all those rungs or steps to which it can go to play operationally with the unfolding catastrophe. They have no resources. They don't know how to fight it. And just to conclude this thing, and how the situation on the front and all those tactical and operational things challenge the situation for the combined West, which is really bad for them. Here's Mr. Lavrov in conclusion, and he is absolutely correct. Look at this. While this buffoonery on the Ukrainian side continues in Istanbul, well, he says today that BRICS is a key platform for the global majority. The BRICS group has become a leading platform for aligning the interests of the global majority, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Thursday in a video message to participants of the second BRICS Women's Entrepreneurship Forum. And actually, Mr. Lavrov, always Russians are extremely conservative. The reality of BRICS GDP is way more than 40% of global GDP. It actually surpasses the GDP of the combined West, and by a huge margin. However, he is absolutely correct. BRICS is a key platform, and that's what will be in the future, instead of this utterly corrupt, utterly ineffective, and utterly subverted United Nations, subverted by the primarily American and Western interests. So there you go, as simple as that. And you cannot argue with this, especially when you remember the first rule of geopolitics. It is driven by tangibles, and being the reflection of the actual balance of power, the only thing which matters is what is going on at the battlefield. And we know what is going on at the battlefield. And this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, I want to thank my wonderful patrons. It is because of you I do what I'm doing. And you have to understand, I have quite a huge chunk of you guys. I cannot always respond to all those wonderful, proper questions many of you ask in private. But I try to do my best, okay? So it's not like I'm ignoring you. I know who you are. Some of you are my dear friends. And so my profound thank you, guys. But as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and two. And what can I say? Have a nice upcoming weekend, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.